Today's cars can go from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour faster than we would ever need. Their dashboards look like spaceships and they can park and drive themselves. However, current cars aren't like that. The simple vehicles of the past and the way they're changing is a bit scary. New cars aren't worse. This video shows changes in the auto industry and issues with current cars. In many ways, today's cars are obviously better than those of the past. But in this video, we're going to show you how the automotive industry has changed over the generations and how today's cars are more current. They are worse in some very interesting and problematic ways. We're not the only ones saying this. If you look around a bit on the internet or directly on YouTube, you'll find a lot of people talking about this phenomenon of modern cars that don't meet some key expectations we had for a car. A lot of this is just opinions and people complaining about how they don't like electric vehicles or something like that. But in all this mess, there's a general shift that sums up what's happening or what's coming out. Bad. Technology. If you were to explain to Henry Ford that the Cybertruck is the most talked about vehicle of 2024, he'd probably have a neurosis. An autonomous electric vehicle packed with technology, ultra-fast, you can buy, but not resell, is dominating the internet. It represents a kind of peak in our modern car culture. And we'll talk more about this vehicle later in the video. The evolution of technology in cars. In the last 80 years, there have been a series of changes that have made cars easier and more comfortable to drive. Automatic transmissions, lane assist, infotainment systems, heated seats, backup cameras, and many other features are now standard in many cars. The purpose of all this is to make driving easier for everyone. Some of this technology has been a real benefit to people's driving experience. And it is, in part, just the natural progression of the automotive industry. But while older vehicles were designed for simplicity and ease of repair, today's technology-dependent cars are falling into the trap of planned obsolescence in a really big way. The reason the car community has been talking about the declining quality of cars for years is because, in general, the car community is pretty passionate. Car reviews are incredibly comprehensive and there are entire communities. And loyalties to certain brands and models that make them very careful consumers. When it comes to one of the biggest purchases you'll make in your life. In the past, there were a lot of people who worked on their own cars, and most folks knew how to do it. Change your own oil and do basic maintenance. The repairability and service industry for cars was once very well developed, but this has been changing slowly and carefully over the years. In a very careful way. Careful and strategic. And that's why car enthusiasts are upset with new cars. Comfort versus connection with the vehicle. Earlier, we mentioned that a lot of this technology is making cars easier and more comfortable to drive. And this is good for the automotive industry because if cars are easier to drive, more people will buy cars. Of course, all these comforts make driving better for everyone. Theoretically, but it also has the double effect of separating people from their cars. One of the earliest and most obvious examples of this is the transmission. In a manual transmission, you're physically moving the clutch in and out. Are you choosing which gear to go into? What tells you how fast you're going? And you're fundamentally much more involved with all the mechanics of your vehicle. In an automatic, however, you just press the gas to go faster and the brake to slow down. Automatics hit the market in 1939. Setting a trend that has led to almost nobody knowing how to drive a manual transmission today. But now that cars are easy to drive, they also had to be comfortable. Manual windows were replaced by power windows and cruise control became a necessity. For many car owners, these and many other features meant that you could drive comfortably for longer periods and save all that energy for other activities, while you're behind the wheel. Starting in the 90s, digital media began to make its first foray into cars in the form of CDs, making driving even more fun. In the 2000s, TVs became common in some minivans, making driving even more fun. And I have to ask anyone who has lived that dream. It was as good as it looked from the outside. The era of technology in cars. This was really a turning point. Once technology entered cars, it was never going to leave. From the 2000s onwards, the more features a car had, the higher the price. So manufacturers simply leaned in and tried to automate every part of the automotive experience. Rear-view cameras meant they no longer needed to turn their heads. Automatic seats meant you didn't have to lean forward to grab the handle. And remote start key fobs meant that people didn't even need to use their keys. I feel like in many ways, the key was the last real physical connection people had to the mechanical workings of their car. And with this last mechanical part handed over to the driver, we are now firmly in the era where cars are more computers than machines. These days, all cars have full internet connectivity and Bluetooth, with big screens where you can play video games, adjust the interior settings, and access navigation and more. And these screens are kind of a focal point of what people hate most about modern cars. See that screen on the dashboard? It's like an iPad. If you've used a 5-year-old iPad, they don't work well. And you know car manufacturers aren't partnering with Apple to offer the most up-to-date chip technology for their displays. So there's speculation about how long these things are actually going to last. But not only that, these dashboard entertainment systems are the complete opposite of what we've been taught for years not to do while driving, which is to look at your phone. These screens have become such a big selling feature that cars now have no knobs. All the internal functions of the car have to be accessed through some control system. Menu on the screen, and you must find it while driving at 100 kilometers per hour. We put this distraction on the dashboard. But how did we tackle this safety issue? We spent billions on tech solutions to make cars safer. It is easy to argue today's cars are safer, right? We did not have seatbelts before. Now cars alert us to pedestrians or lane drifting. Except when a car drove through a crosswalk with pedestrians. I mean, we didn't even have seatbelts in the past, and now we have cars that will tell us when a pedestrian is crossing the street or when we're drifting out of our lane. Well, except for that one time when the car just drove through a crosswalk while pedestrians were crossing. That was crazy, but here's the thing. Many of the safety-based changes being implemented are an attempt to eliminate the human variable from the driving experience. Because if you ask the tech brothers, the safest cars are the ones that aren't operated by people. But this hasn't really worked out the way they wanted. The first problem with the technological solution is that it has problems. The quality of new vehicles in general is declining, and it's not like you can just turn the thing off or back on when you're flying down the road. You'll notice that the company making the biggest claims about the value of technology in cars is the one having the most problems. This is a log statistic. Cars with ADAS, or Advanced Driver Assistance Systems, are actually more likely to crash than less technological cars. The same thing happened when we put seatbelts in cars. People started taking more risks because they thought they were being kept safer by the technology around them. If you put a bunch of technology around a person, one that's supposed to distract them and then another that's supposed to keep them safe while they're distracted, it's going to make them a worse driver. Then you combine this with all the modern conveniences and functionality of today's cars, and it means you have worse drivers driving a lot more than ever before. In fact, it's gotten to the point today where some new cars had driver monitoring systems that are basically like a little policeman in your car to make sure you're watching the road and holding the correct steering wheel. But the hilarious irony here is that the only driver assistance system that could actually reduce deaths, which is Smart Speed Assistance, is basically not being used at all for some reason. The future of car ownership and repair. So instead of humans driving cars, we have cars driving humans. And this is fundamentally the problem, because driving used to require skill. You had to understand how the car worked, how it reacted to different inputs, and how to make sure it didn't break down or wear out too quickly. Driving and owning a car used to be a very involved and complete experience, and now it isn't. And that's exactly how the automotive world wants it to be. That's why a lot of people are really angry with electric cars. They don't dislike electric motors. People know little about cars. It's because they represent a new world where people know nothing about cars and where owners really have no control over how their cars work or how to fix them. And in this sense, I really agree with them. Look, the less we know about what's going on with our cars, the more we'll be at the mercy of car manufacturers. And hey, do you like cars? You know that today it's much harder. Fixing your own car used to be different. I mean, aside from the fact that you can Google and basically find any information about any repair on YouTube. Let me explain the right to repair issues. These issues are well documented in the tech world and are becoming an increasingly bigger problem in the automotive industry. In fact, cars are harder to fix, even if you take them to a professional. Not all mechanics want to invest in the computer diagnostic technology they need to work on new car systems. But even if they have all the gadgets and gizmos to tinker with the new car systems, the newer systems are only set up to share information with car dealerships, supposedly due to copyright and security concerns. This has led to a whole reactionary culture of people modifying their cars without the manufacturer's permission. Tesla won't let anyone modify or work on their cars by themselves, without voiding all the warranties. For most people who maybe knew how to change their oil in a pinch, car repairs are going to get a lot harder and probably a lot more expensive. Car repair is a very competitive market. So dealerships are trying to block everyone else out of the market and force you to go only to them for repairs. Their local mechanics and aftermarket industries are at risk of extinction, along with old cars, leaving you with an exclusive relationship with the sellers, who are our favorite people. Clearly. And now I come to the point. The whole concept of car ownership is in question. Tesla vehicles since 2016 have had self-driving technology built into every model, but the option to activate it is an extra package that must be purchased. Since 2020, BMW has been selling cars equipped with all the latest features that you can't use unless you pay for them. The cars are fully loaded. Right, they have heated seats, driver assistance. There's an app that will alert you if a traffic camera is coming up. But they've put all these features behind a software lock, so you can't access them without a subscription. Have you already bought the car? Have you paid for it? It's totally yours, but you're paying $18 a month for heated seats. Do you smell that? That's the smell of a subscription scam, and they're everywhere these days. Let me know in the comments if you want an exclusive video about subscriptions. And more recently, another example is the Cybertruck, of course. This one is unsellable. Yeah, there's a clause in the purchase agreement that says you can't sell the truck during the first year after its release, which is only for these models, I guess, but it sets a bit of a scary precedent that probably won't turn out too well for consumers. And in many ways, the Cybertruck is kind of the ultimate manifestation of this world of self-driving cars, focused on economy features. The features of the truck are the only thing people are talking about. It has rear steering and an absurd design, meant just to get looks on the street. Clicks on the internet, and all the range of cool features from Tesla that people love to show off to their families and friends. However, you don't need to be a dealer to realize that the Cybertruck is objectively unnecessary. For most people who buy it for truck stuff, because true truck lovers aren't buying the Cybertruck. Our relationship with cars has never been so confusing, and the Cybertruck is proof of that. But the craziest part is that consumers really don't seem to care about all this extra technology. They care about some things, like safety features and navigation systems. Not again. But the craziest part of all this is that consumers really don't seem to care about all this extra technology. They care about some things, like safety features and navigation systems, which are definitely convenient. It's like car manufacturers think they need to compete to have the latest technology. And, obviously, they like that it makes cars a lot more expensive. That's convenient. But most people either don't use the advanced tech features at all, don't even know they exist, or just don't care. But here's the silver lining before we wrap up. As the tech industry and the automotive industry become synonymous with each other, we are seeing a movement. Contrary to people who prefer things to be a little simpler, people are keeping their cars for much longer than they used to. And there is growing interest in simpler models, such as small cars and trucks. But you know what's really crazy? We already have that self-driving technology that takes you where you need to be, while you watch Netflix at the same time. And it's called a bus, or subway or tram, or whatever. We focus so much on cars, as this kind of innovative, crazy technology that we forget we already have a lot of the solutions to these problems.